Hello and welcome to Crypto News. Today is April 23rd, 2025, and the top crypto news is as follows. And of course, today we're going to start our episode upside down and go to Bitcoin, which is currently sitting at $93,000 with this big green candle. Let's just say that obviously in terms of the traditional market, stocks like Coinbase, Strategy, and so on have been skyrocketing as the price of Bitcoin has been rising. Even the Bitcoin spot ETFs have started to rejoice. On April 21st, we had positive inflows of $381 million, and on April 22nd, we had positive interest of $912 million. Numbers we haven't seen in a long time, especially on April 22nd. The reason why all cryptocurrency markets, and especially Bitcoin, are happy is the US Treasury Secretary. Let's say that at an event that was not for everyone, but for specific people, organized by JP Morgan in the US Capitol, the US Treasury Secretary came out and said that a trade war with China would not be sustainable for the US or for China. He expects there to be a de-escalation soon, and that is what made the markets happy. However, as we heard, there is also other news that the US has put tariffs of up to 3.5 to 1% on solar panels from Southeast Asia. So the US Treasury Secretary says that we should stop the tariffs, and on the other hand, we see that they are putting more tariffs as far as Asian countries are concerned. Now, coming back to Bitcoin, I want to add that we see that Bitcoin is behaving more like a precious metal than a stock. This is evident from the chart you see. Stock indices like the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq are volatile, while Bitcoin is more closely following the price of gold and behaving more like gold. Obviously, we have a long way to go before we see this happening consistently. However, gradually, some investors see Bitcoin as a safe haven. Moving on to additional US news, we go to Trump, who we have said in previous episodes of Crypto News that he is considering firing the Fed chairman. However, he went out to an interview with reporters and said that he has no intention of doing so and is not thinking about it. And all of this is referred to in the statement that I will have below in the description of sources, in which he basically says that he is not thinking about firing the Fed chairman, nor was he thinking about it. However, he constantly emphasizes that this is the best time to cut interest rates, and it is better for the Fed to cut interest rates. Let's say that interest rates in the US, if they are cut, will be cut in 14 days. However, in terms of our forecasts, 95% say that they will remain exactly the same. However, the US president wants interest rates to be cut. Moving on, we move on to the latest US political news, and we move on to the new SEC chairman, who essentially, in his inauguration speech, promised a rational and consistent approach to cryptocurrency regulation and legislation in the US. So let's hope he does his job properly. Moving on, we move from the US to Europe, and we move on to some European moves regarding blockchain and the data that can be stored on blockchain. The European Data Protection Board has adopted rules governing how personal data can be stored and shared on blockchain, marking another step towards aligning decentralized technology with existing models. In other words, in general, storing personal data on blockchain should be avoided if it conflicts with data protection principles. So maybe we'll have a problem in the future. However, decentralized blockchains don't care about these things. Moving on to our other news, we'll go to Trump Media, the parent company owned by Mr. Trump, which we learned will be investing up to $250 million, mostly in ETFs that track crypto, and all of that is based on their partnership with Crypto.com. So apparently Crypto.com's cryptocurrency is very happy right now as we speak, up 11% on the 24-hour chart. Moving on, we'll go to some positive news for Solana for another day, as we learn that Janover, which is the MicroStrategy for Solana, is continuing to buy Solana and has bought $37 million in Solana. Or, in other words, 88,164 Solana. We also learned that it has been renamed DeFi Development Corporation. But in addition to the typical company buying Solana, we will also go to Galaxy Digital, a more well-known investment firm, from which we learned that it exchanged $106 million from Ethereum to buy Solana. This seems to have happened in the last 2 weeks, according to Look and Chain. And speaking of Ethereum, let's say that Ethereum continues to lose in other areas. We will go to NFTs, where Polygon has surpassed Ethereum in terms of NFT sales. According to CryptoSlam, as we can see in the 7-day chart, Polygon has made more NFT sales than Ethereum. However, the main reason is this collection called Courtyard, which appears to be a collection of cards from various basketball stars and other well-known sports figures in America. Let's say the special thing about this collection is that it's a real-world asset collection. That is, you have the NFT that proves that you own the card, but you can also get the physical card because you have it at home from what I understand. So based on this news, we finished today's episode. That wraps up the top news for crypto today is April 23rd, 2025. I'd like to remind you that the content you just watched is created for educational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice, but rather as investment opinion. Please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and feel free to comment. Take care everyone, and have a good day.